Do you think that you can benefit from having more consistency and accuracy in your kitchen?
Well, today on WTF, we're going to take a look at all of our scales and see how they can save you time and money in the kitchen. Hello and welcome to WTF, where we transform food here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen. I'm Chef Scott Guerin.
And I'm Janie Wang, the owner of Modernist Pantry. So today Scott and I are going to be talking all about scales and why we think it's important to have one in the kitchen.
Yes.
So if you're a home chef like me, you're probably used to measuring with these, tablespoons, teaspoons, cups and cups and cups. But there is a better way. So today we're going to talk all about that, and then Scott and I are going to do a measure off
Yes.
to see which technique is better.
So the reason why you would want to do this is you're always going to measure things by weight as opposed to volume, is that you're going to get a more accurate recipe that will be more consistent. It'll save you time, it'll save you money. So if you and I were to measure out 1 cup of flour in a cup measure, a volume measure, your cup of flour and my cup of flour will weigh different amounts. And by doing that, if you're using smaller amounts of ingredients, things like even down to the yeast or the diastatic malt powder, as we're doing in this recipe, it's going to give a slightly different effect to what the final recipe is. And you want a consistent recipe because you want it to be the same every single time.
Yeah, and why is it that when you measure by volume, you do get a different result pretty much almost every single time? So
there's going to be a few things. How you scoop it and how I scoop it are going to be different. Am I packing it in there really, really tightly? Are you making it nice and loose? Also, humidity can play a big factor in that, and changing the actual volume of it rather than just the weight. So there's a lot of differences that can affect these.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. So what we have here in our store, we have 3 different scales. What are they, and kind of how are they different?
So I'm going to start off with my favorite. It's the extreme precision. So it goes down to 1/100th of a gram, and it has a 100-gram capacity. So if you're measuring very small amounts, sometimes you need 0.01 grams of something. It's easy to get it on that. Then we have the high precision scale, which has a 500-gram capacity. This is like your multi-use, if you're doing it for salt, yeast, sugar, anything like that, you want to use this. It goes down to 1/10 of a gram. And then we have the high capacity scale, which I believe has a 10 to 11 pound range on it, and it just goes down to 1 gram is the lowest weight that you can find on it.
Right. And I'm sure some people are thinking, why do I need to measure to 0.10 or even 0.01 of a gram? Why is that important?
So with a lot of our ingredients, you don't need a massive amount of them. Let's just take something like sodium bisulfite. Sodium bisulfite, you need such a small amount for it to work that you want to get that low. If you use too much, it can cause a reaction in some people. So if you get down to 0.2 grams, that's all you need. If you're trying to do it on even the high precision, you can't see that 0.2 grams. So you're going to only see the 0.1, which is 5 times the amount that you need. Right,
exactly. And I know that we get a lot of calls here in our kitchen about my recipe isn't quite working, and I don't understand why. And I know one of the most common calls we get is typically around spherification.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the role that having that precise measurement plays in spherification?
Yeah, so it's really important with spherification is that if you're putting sodium alginate into a liquid, if you put too much, sodium alginate is a thickener. It's going to be too thick and it won't create the the proper size spheres that you're looking for. If you put too little, it's not going to have enough to really react and make that perfect gel on the outside that's going to allow them to make spheres. So you really want to be extremely precise, and the only way you're going to be able to do that is with a measuring on a scale. If you're trying to do it by volume with a teaspoon measure, you're going to add too much. It's inevitable.
You're right. And if you watched any of many YouTube videos on spherification, a lot of times they're just showing like, oh, I just took a spoonful of this and a spoonful of that, and I'm watching it like, there's no way that could have possibly worked, right?
And they always come out in these weird shapes. They're lumpy kind of spheres. That's not really a sphere. So you want to make sure that you're doing it precise and you're doing it right at that point. And you're not wasting too much of this product because you're going to have to do it again and again, and it's always going to be different.
Yeah, I know that when I cook a lot of issues times, you know, when I have issues, it's because I can't duplicate the same results over and over again. And I know I should be using one of these scales.
Yes.
And then I'm just lazy sometimes, but I will no longer be lazy after this episode.
Yeah, and also you make a mess. So you're going to use pretty much every one of those utensils where I'm going to use 2 different spoons, and it all goes into the same container at the end. So it's going to save you time on the cleanup as well.
All right, so what are you and I going to be doing today?
All right, so we're going to measure out all the dry ingredients for our donut recipe, which you saw in the diastatic malt powder episode. The link will be in the description below. And I will do it by weight, and you will do it by volume. And we will then measure them at the end to see who is closest to the correct amount of weight for the entire recipe.
Okay, well, looking forward to the measure off. We're going to be right back after we set up.
And we're back. It took me a little bit quicker of a time than it took you.
Just a little bit. Don't brag. No one likes that.
I read a whole newspaper.
I know. The cover looked very interesting.
But we should weigh these. So these are all tared off at the exact weight of the container.
Okay.
I did it with the spare container that we had. And it should weigh 688 grams each.
Okay.
If they're both done right. So let's put them on and we can see.
Dun, dun, dun.
Right, so mine's pretty close. Mine's at 690.
What does mine say? I'm short and I can't see it.
Yours says 810.
All right.
809. It's fluctuating a bit.
So about, what, 20% over?
Yeah, about 20% over, which is more dry ingredients than your liquid in your recipe can handle. And so they're going to be really dry donuts. Is that what everyone wants, right?
Yeah. And you know what? Like, and if we didn't do this and I get the dry donuts, I'd be like, why are my donuts dry? This recipe sucks, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's kind of the typical reaction. It's not me, it's the recipe.
Yes, of course. It's not me, it's you. So obviously we can see a big difference, not only in the time, but the amount of extra product that you're going to waste, because if these don't come out at all, you may end up throwing them away. Probably,
or I might not want to do this recipe again because I'll think it doesn't work, or
so there's a lot of different things that could factor into it. And if you're in a professional setting, you don't want to have a different product every single time. So if your customers or whatever, they're coming in, they want to have that same experience every single time. So this is a really big important part of that. Even if you're having dinner guests over, if you make something for them, then it becomes your signature dish. You don't want it to be different the next time and let them down, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So we really need, measuring things by scale, by weight, is so much different than doing it by volume, and it's going to be so much more consistent and better.
And just faster too, so you're saving a lot of time and energy. There really is, I think, no real reason not to do it. I think that's just aside from just people growing up and having a certain habit, right? But now hopefully you see that there's a better way to measure by weight, and we do have these scales available on our website. Yeah, and they're really easy to use.
Yeah, extremely easy to use.
Okay, so I will now go and weep in defeat from the measure off. And from here in the Modernist Pantry Test Kitchen, I'm Janie Wang.
And I'm Scott Guerin. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe. And turn that bell on because it notifies you when we drop a new video.
If you like any of today's recipes, go to blog.modernistpantry.com. There you'll find recipes, Ask a Chefs, and tips and tricks, and more.
And if you have a friend who you think would like this video, share it with them.
And to get any of these great ingredients, just go to our website, www.modernistpantry.com.
And until next time, we'll be here in the Test Kitchen, helping you create memorable and magical experiences.